Jake Martinez stood at the window of the starship and looked out at the empty space around them. Stars dotted the black like tiny diamonds. He had seen many beautiful things in his 32 years, but space still made him feel small and amazed. The ship was called Starlight Dawn. It was Earth's newest diplomatic vessel, built specially for this mission. Jake worked as the security chief. His job was to keep everyone safe during the most important meeting in human history. Today, aliens were coming to talk peace. Jake wore his best military uniform. The blue fabric was pressed and clean. His boots shined like mirrors. On his chest, he wore the medals he had earned as a Marine. Each one told a story of battles fought and friends lost. He was born in Texas and had always been a fighter. His father taught him to stand up for what was right. His mother taught him to be polite, even to people he did not like. Both lessons would be useful today. Ambassador Helen Torres walked up beside him. She was a smart woman who spoke 12 languages. Her job was to lead the talks with the aliens. "Nervous, Jake?" she asked. "No, ma'am," Jake replied. "Just ready." Helen smiled. "Good, we need you calm today. These aliens are very different from us." Jake had read all the files about the Zephyrians. They were tall beings with skin that looked like crystal. They could read minds and move things without touching them. Their empire ruled over dozens of worlds. They had been the strongest power in this part of space for thousands of years. The Zephyrians thought humans were weak and stupid. They called Earth a primitive world, but something had changed their minds. Maybe it was because humans had built faster ships than expected. Maybe it was because human minds were harder to read than other species. Whatever the reason, they wanted to talk. A young officer ran up to them. "Ambassador Torres, the Zephyrian ship is coming." Everyone rushed to the main meeting room. Through the big windows, they could see a ship approaching. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hull was made of some kind of metal that changed colors like oil on water. Strange lights moved across its surface. The ship was 3 times bigger than their own. Jake felt his heart beat faster. He had faced enemy soldiers before, but never aliens who could read his thoughts. The Zephyrian ship docked with theirs. Jake and his security team stood ready. They wore no weapons. This was supposed to be a peaceful meeting, but Jake kept his hands free just in case. The airlock opened with a soft hiss. The first alien to step through was enormous. It stood 9 feet tall and wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. This had to be Empress Vexara, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. Her skin was deep purple crystal that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. Her eyes were silver and seemed to look right through Jake's skull. Behind her came guards and advisors. They were all tall and beautiful in a cold way. Their movements were too smooth, like they were floating instead of walking. Then Jake saw her. The last alien to enter was different from the others. She was smaller, maybe only 7 feet tall. Her crystal skin was pale blue-green like shallow ocean water. Unlike the others who moved with serious purpose, she looked around the room with obvious curiosity. This had to be Princess Lyra. Ambassador Torres stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Your Imperial Majesty, welcome aboard the Starlight Dawn. I am Ambassador Helen Torres, speaking for the people of Earth." The Empress did not bow back. She looked down at Helen like a person might look at an interesting insect. "Ambassador Torres," the Empress said. Her voice was like music, but cold music. "We have come to discuss the future of your species." Jake noticed that the princess was not paying attention to the formal words. Instead, she was staring right at him. He felt something strange in his head, like someone was trying to open a door he wanted to keep closed. He had been trained for this. Human minds were naturally resistant to alien telepathy. Jake focused on building walls in his thoughts, the way the military doctors had taught him. The princess tilted her head, looking confused. She tried harder to read his mind. Jake felt the pressure increase, but his defenses held. Princess Lyra smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Mother," she said, her voice like silver bells. "Look at this one. He thinks he can keep me out of his primitive little mind." The Empress glanced at Jake with mild interest. "Humans," she said. "They always think they are stronger than they are." Jake said nothing. He kept his face blank and his thoughts protected. The princess walked closer to him. She was beautiful, but in a dangerous way, like a sword made of ice. "What is your name, little warrior?" she asked. "Jake Martinez, Your Highness." "Security Chief," she laughed. The sound made Jake think of breaking glass. "Security Chief," she repeated. "How charming. Tell me, Jake Martinez, what exactly do you think you can protect these soft humans from?" Jake looked her in the eyes. Whatever needs protecting them from, Your Highness. The princess stopped laughing. For a moment, something like surprise crossed her face. Ambassador Torres cleared her throat. Perhaps we should move to the conference room. We have prepared refreshments in the style of both our peoples. The Empress nodded. Very well. Let us see what your people have to offer. As the group moved toward the conference room, Jake felt eyes on him. He turned and saw Princess Lyra watching him with new interest. She was no longer trying to read his mind, but she was studying him like he was a puzzle she wanted to solve. The conference room had been set up carefully. Human and Zephyrian flags hung side by side. The table was round so no one would sit at the head. Earth had prepared foods and drinks that their research said Zephyrians might enjoy. The Empress took her seat. The other Zephyrians arranged themselves around her. Jake and his security team stood along the walls, as was proper. But Princess Lyra did not sit down right away. She walked around the table looking at the human preparations. How quaint, she said. You have tried so hard to please us. Like children presenting gifts to adults. Jake's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Ambassador Torres smiled politely. We hope to show respect for Zephyrian culture, Your Highness. Respect, the princess repeated. She picked up a glass of water and held it up to the light. Do you know what respect means to my people, Ambassador? Please enlighten us. Princess Lyra set down the glass and looked around the room. Her gaze stopped on each human present. Respect means knowing your place, she said. It means understanding that some beings are born to rule and others are born to serve. It means kneeling when your betters enter the room. The room became very quiet. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Ambassador Torres kept smiling, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. I see, Torres said carefully. On Earth, we show respect through hospitality and equality. We believe all intelligent beings deserve dignity. The Empress spoke for the first time since entering the room. How wonderfully naive. Princess Lyra clapped her hands together once. Oh, this will be fun, she said. I do so enjoy meeting species who have not yet learned their place in the galaxy. Jake felt his hands curl into fists. He forced them to relax. This was going to be a very long day. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrians came aboard the Starlight Dawn. The peace talks were not going well. Every morning, the two sides sat at the round table and argued about the same things. Jake Martinez had learned to expect trouble from Princess Lyra. It started small. On the second day, Jake was drinking coffee in the security office. He reached for his cup and watched it slide away from his hand. He looked up and saw Princess Lyra standing in the doorway smiling. Oops, she said, but she did not sound sorry. Jake got up, walked to where his cup had stopped, and picked it up. He sat back down and continued reading his reports. He did not look at her again. The princess waited for him to get angry or complain. When he did nothing, she tried harder. During the third day's meeting, Jake stood guard by the wall. Suddenly, his mind filled with strange pictures. He saw himself as a tiny ant being stepped on by a giant boot. He saw Earth burning while aliens laughed. He saw his own face twisted with fear. The images were so real that Jake felt sick, but he kept his expression blank and his body still. The military had taught him to ignore distractions. This was just another kind of enemy attack. Princess Lyra frowned when she saw that her mental games were not working. Ambassador Torres was talking about trade agreements when Princess Lyra interrupted. Tell me. Ambassador, the princess said, do all humans lack imagination, or is it just your security chief? Torres looked confused. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I have been trying to show him some interesting mental images, Princess Lyra explained. But he just stands there like a statue. Very boring. The Empress looked at Jake with mild curiosity. You can resist telepathic suggestion? Yes, Your Majesty, Jake replied. Interesting, the Empress said. Most species cannot block even a child's mental touch. Princess Lyra stood up from her chair.
He is not blocking me, Mother.
He is simply too stupid to understand what I am showing him. Jake felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his mouth shut. That evening, Jake was walking to his quarters when Princess Lyra appeared in the hallway ahead of him. She had been waiting for him. Security Chief Martinez, she said. Walk with me. It was not really a request. Jake fell into step beside her as she moved through the ship's corridors. You frustrate me, she said suddenly. I'm sorry to hear that, Your Highness. No, you are not sorry. That is the problem. She stopped walking and turned to face him. Do you know how long I've lived? No, Your Highness. 200 years. In all that time, every being I have met has reacted to me in one of two ways. They either bow down in fear or they lash out in anger. You do neither, Jake shrugged. I'm just doing my job. Your job, she repeated. Which is what exactly? Keep everyone safe. Make sure the talks go smoothly. Princess Lyra laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You think you can keep your people safe from us? We could destroy this ship with a thought. Maybe, Jake said. But you haven't. What makes you think we will not? Jake stopped walking and looked at her directly. Because you need something from us. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here talking. You'd just take what you wanted. For the first time since he had met her, Princess Lyra looked genuinely surprised. You are more clever than you appear, she said. Thank you. Your Highness. They walked in silence for a while. The ship's lights dimmed automatically as the day cycle ended. Tell me about your world, Princess Lyra said. What would you like to know? Everything. Your wars, your people, your customs. What makes humans think they can stand as equals with the Zephyrian Empire? Jake thought about how to answer. We don't think we're better than anyone. We just think we deserve the same respect we give others. Respect must be earned. I agree, Jake said. But so does the right to rule over others. Princess Lyra stopped walking again. This time she looked angry. You dare question my mother's authority? I'm not questioning anything, Your Highness. I'm just saying that where I come from, leaders have to prove they deserve to lead. And how do they do that? Jake smiled for the first time since the talks began. They protect their people instead of threatening them. The next morning brought new problems. The formal negotiations had reached a deadlock. The Zephyrians wanted Earth to provide tribute payments and accept vassal status. Ambassador Torres refused. We propose a trade partnership between equals, Torres said for the 10th time. Empress Vexara's crystalline skin flashed with angry colors. Equals, you inhabit one small world. We rule dozens of systems. How are we equal? Because intelligence and dignity are not measured by the size of your empire, Torres replied. Princess Lyra had been quiet during the morning session. But now she stood up. Mother, she said, perhaps the humans have a point. Every being in the room went silent. Jake could hear the ship's engines humming in the background. The Empress turned to look at her daughter. Explain. Princess Lyra gestured toward the human delegation. They have achieved faster than light travel in less than a century. Their minds resist telepathic control. Their warriors show unusual mental discipline. She glanced at Jake. Perhaps they deserve to be treated as partners rather than subjects. Jake was as shocked as everyone else. He had not expected the princess to defend humanity. The Empress's eyes went wide. Then they narrowed to silver slits. You speak out of turn, daughter. I speak the truth as I see it, mother. The tension in the room became thick enough to cut. Jake could see the other Zephyrians shifting uncomfortably. Apparently, Princess Lyra was not supposed to disagree with her mother in public. Ambassador Torres tried to ease the situation. Your Highness honors us with her words. Perhaps we could take a short break too? No, the Empress said. Her voice was cold as space. My daughter will learn to control her tongue. She stood up to her full 9-foot height. Her skin began to glow with inner light. Jake felt pressure building in the air around them. Princess Lyra took a step backward, but she lifted her chin defiantly. I will not take back what I said, mother. The humans have earned my respect. Then you will learn why respect flows upward, not down. Jake watched in growing alarm as Princess Lyra began to shake. Her face went pale. Sweat appeared on her forehead. The Empress was using her telepathic powers to punish her own daughter. Jake had seen enough bullies in his life to recognize one, even when they wore royal robes. His body tensed as he prepared to act. That's enough, he said quietly. The Empress turned her silver gaze on him. You dare interrupt a family matter? I dare interrupt abuse, Jake replied. He stepped forward, placing himself between the Empress and her daughter. The other Zephyrians gasped. The human diplomats looked terrified. Ambassador Torres grabbed Jake's arm. Jake, don't. But Jake was already moving. He had made his choice. The pressure in the room increased. The Empress was now directing her telepathic attack at both Jake and her daughter. Jake felt like someone was trying to crush his skull, but his mental defenses held. The military training, the years of combat, the simple human stubbornness that the aliens found so puzzling, all of it combined to keep his mind intact. Behind him, Princess Lyra gasped in relief as the mental pressure lessened. Interesting, the Empress said. You can protect others as well as yourself. Yes, Your Majesty, even at the cost of your own life. Jake met her eyes without flinching, if necessary. For a long moment, nobody moved. The two most powerful beings in the room stared at each other across a gap of species, culture, and understanding. Finally, the Empress smiled. It was not a nice smile. We shall see, she said. The day after Jake stood up to the Empress, everything changed aboard the Starlight Dawn. Princess Lyra came to find him in the morning. Jake was checking security reports in his office when she appeared in the doorway. She looked different somehow. Less arrogant, more thoughtful. Security Chief Martinez, she said. May I speak with you? Jake gestured to the chair across from his desk. Of course, Your Highness. She sat down but did not speak right away. Instead, she stared at her hands. No one has ever done what you did yesterday, she finally said. What do you mean? Stood between me and my mother's anger. She looked up at him. Why did you do it? Jake thought about the question. Because it was the right thing to do. Even though it could have gotten you killed? Yes, Princess Lyra shook her head slowly. You humans are very strange. In my empire, people only take risks for themselves or their family. They do not risk death for strangers. Maybe that's why your empire needs to use fear to control people, Jake said. The princess was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. You made me feel something yesterday that I have never felt before. What was that? Protected. She stood up quickly as if embarrassed by her words. I should go. The talks continue this afternoon. After she left, Jake sat thinking about their conversation. He was starting to understand that Princess Lyra was not really evil. She was just young and had been raised in a culture that taught her to value power over kindness. The afternoon negotiations were tense from the start. Ambassador Torres presented Earth's final offer: a mutual trade agreement, technology sharing, and cultural exchange. No tribute payments, no vassal status. Empress Vexara listened without expression. When Torres finished, the Empress spoke. Your terms are unacceptable. You offer us nothing we cannot take by force. Force would make you conquerors, not allies. Torres replied. Perhaps conquest is preferable to this charade of equality. Jake felt the mood in the room growing dangerous. The Zephyrian guards shifted their positions. The Empress's skin began to glow with angry colors. Then Princess Lyra spoke up. Mother, I think we should accept their offer. The silence that followed was complete. Even the ship's engines seemed to quiet down. The Empress turned slowly to look at her daughter. What did you say? Princess Lyra stood up from her chair. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see her hands shaking. I said we should accept the human offer. They are offering partnership, not submission. There is honor in that. Honor? The Empress's voice was like ice cracking. You speak to me of honor while defying me in front of aliens? I speak of the honor I learned from watching a human warrior yesterday. The honor of protecting others even when it cost you everything. Jake felt his stomach drop. Princess Lyra was making things worse for herself by praising him. The Empress rose from her chair. As she stood, her presence seemed to fill the entire room. Her crystalline skin pulsed with angry light. You have forgotten your place, daughter. You have forgotten who you are. No, mother. I am finally learning who I want to be. The other Zephyrians looked terrified. Even the guards seemed afraid to move. Ambassador Torres tried to intervene. Your Majesty, perhaps we could discuss this privately. Silence, the Empress commanded. Torres's mouth snapped shut involuntarily. The Empress focused all her attention on her daughter. You will apologize for your insolence. You will support my decisions without question. And you will never again embarrass me in front of lesser beings. Princess Lyra lifted her chin. I will not apologize for standing up for what is right. Then you will learn the price of defiance. The Empress's eyes began to glow like silver stars. The air in the room grew thick and heavy. Jake felt pressure building behind his eyes. Princess Lyra gasped and stumbled backward. The telepathic attack was stronger than anything Jake had felt before. The Empress was using her full power against her own daughter. Mother, please. Princess Lyra fell to one knee, tears streaming down her face. Jake watched in horror as the young alien princess was forced down by her mother's mental assault. This was not discipline. This was cruelty. The other humans in the room were struggling too. Ambassador Torres held her head in her hands. The younger diplomats looked like they might pass out. Jake made his decision. He stepped forward, putting himself between the Empress and Princess Lyra once again. But this time was different. This time the Empress was using her full power. The mental attack hit Jake like a physical blow. He felt his knees buckle, but he stayed standing. His vision blurred, but he kept his eyes fixed on the Empress. Behind him, he heard Princess Lyra's breathing ease as he took on some of the telepathic pressure. "You," the Empress said, her voice filled with rage. "You dare interfere again?" Jake could barely speak through the pain, but he managed to get the words out. "Yes, Your Majesty. Do you know what you are doing, human? I could destroy your mind completely." "I know." Jake's voice was steady despite the agony in his head. "But I won't stand by and watch you hurt someone who can't fight back. She is my daughter. I can discipline her as I see fit." "Where I come from," Jake said, forcing the words out one by one, "we don't call it discipline when someone with power hurts someone without it. We call it bullying." The room went dead silent. No one had ever called the Empress of the Zephyrian Empire a bully. For a moment, Jake thought she was going to kill him on the spot. The mental pressure increased until he thought his skull might crack, but then Princess Lyra spoke from behind him. "He is right." "Mother." The princess struggled to her feet, using Jake's shoulder for support. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger. "He is right, and you know it. You are not disciplining me. You are punishing me for having an opinion that differs from yours." The Empress's attack faltered slightly. "You forget yourself." "No, Mother. I am finally remembering myself. I am a princess of the Zephyrian Empire. My duty is to serve my people, not to bow blindly to authority." Princess Lyra stepped out from behind Jake, standing beside him rather than behind him. "I formally request the right to choose a champion," she announced. Every Zephyrian in the room gasped. Even Jake, who did not understand the significance, could tell this was important. The Empress stared at her daughter in shock. "You invoke the ancient laws?" "I do. By the right of royal blood, I claim the protection of a champion in matters of honor." "And who?" the Empress asked in a dangerous whisper. "Do you choose as your champion?" Princess Lyra turned to look at Jake. Her blue-green eyes were filled with determination. "I choose Security Chief Jake Martinez of Earth." Jake felt the world tilt around him. He did not understand exactly what was happening, but he knew it was significant. Ambassador Torres leaned forward. "Your Highness, what does this mean?" It was the Empress who answered. Her voice was cold and formal. "It means that the human has been granted the right to speak for my daughter in matters of honor and justice. It means he can challenge any decision I make regarding her." She paused, her silver eyes fixed on Jake's face. "It also means that if he fails to prove worthy of this honor, both he and my daughter will face the consequences." Jake looked at Princess Lyra. She was watching him with hope and fear mixed in her expression. He thought about his training, his oath to protect innocent people, and the young alien princess who had shown more courage in the last few minutes than many soldiers showed in their entire careers. "I accept," Jake said. The Empress smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Very well. By the ancient laws of our people, I accept your claim to championship. But know this, human. You have 3 days to prove your worth through the trial of minds. If you fail, both you and my daughter will kneel before me for the rest of your lives." Jake nodded. "I understand, Your Majesty. Do you?" The Empress stepped closer to him. "The trial of minds has never been survived by a non-Zephyrian. You are volunteering to have your consciousness torn apart piece by piece." Jake looked her straight in the eyes. "Then I guess we'll find out what human minds are really made of." For the first time since he had met her, the Empress looked uncertain. Princess Lyra placed her hand on Jake's arm. "Thank you," she whispered. Jake nodded to her, then turned back to face the Empress. "When do we start?" Jake Martinez had 2 days to prepare for a trial that no non-Zephyrian had ever survived. Princess Lyra found him in the ship's small gym, working out with weights. She watched him for a few minutes before speaking. "You should be resting," she said. "Preparing your mind, not your body." Jake finished his set and sat up, wiping sweat from his face. "This is how I prepare my mind. Physical exercise helps me think clearly." She sat down on the bench beside him. "Jake, I need to tell you what you are facing. The trial of minds is not just a mental battle. It is a journey through your own consciousness while someone else tries to destroy it." "Sounds pleasant," Jake said. Princess Lyra did not smile at his joke. My mother will project herself into your mind. She will find your deepest fears, your worst memories, your greatest shames, then she will use them against you. Jake nodded. I figured it would be something like that. You do not understand. She will make you live through every terrible thing that has ever happened to you. She will twist your good memories into nightmares. She will make you doubt everything you believe about yourself. Jake was quiet for a moment. Your Highness, can I ask you something? Of course. Why did you choose me as your champion? You barely know me. Princess Lyra looked down at her hands. Because in 200 years of life, you are the only person who has ever protected me without asking for anything in return. Because when you stood between me and my mother's anger, you did not hesitate. Because you treat me like a person, not a princess. Jake understood. You want to be free to make your own choices. Yes, but now I have put you in terrible danger because of my selfishness. Hey. Jake waited until she looked at him. I made the choice to help you. That's on me, not you. The next day, Ambassador Torres came to see Jake. She looked worried. Jake, you don't have to do this. We can find another way to... No, we can't, Jake interrupted. The princess stuck her neck out for humanity. Now it's my turn to stick my neck out for her. But the trial of minds is just another kind of combat. I've been fighting my whole life, Ambassador. I'm not going to stop now. Torres sat down across from him. Tell me honestly, do you think you can win? Jake thought about the question. I think I can survive it. Whether that's the same as winning, I guess we'll find out. The final day arrived too quickly. The main conference room had been cleared and rearranged. The round table was gone. In its place was a single chair in the center of the room. Jake walked in wearing his dress uniform. He had shined his boots and pressed his jacket. If he was going to face his worst fears, he wanted to look like a Marine while doing it. The Zephyrians stood in a circle around the chair. The Empress wore ceremonial robes that seemed to be made of liquid starlight. Princess Lyra stood with the other aliens, but her eyes were fixed on Jake. Ambassador Torres and the human delegation watched from one side of the room. Jake could see the worry on their faces. Security Chief Martinez, the Empress said formally, are you prepared to undergo the trial of minds? Yes, Your Majesty. Do you understand that failure means death or madness? I understand. And you still choose to proceed? Jake looked around the room. His eyes stopped on Princess Lyra's face. She looked terrified but also determined. I do. Jake sat down in the chair. The Empress approached him, her silver eyes beginning to glow. Close your eyes, human. Open your mind. Let us see what humanity is truly made of. Jake closed his eyes and lowered his mental defenses. He felt the Empress's consciousness slam into his mind like a battering ram. Suddenly, he was no longer in the conference room. He was back in Afghanistan, watching his friend Tommy die from an improvised bomb. But this time, the explosion happened in slow motion. This time, he could see every piece of metal tearing through his friend's body. Feel the guilt? The Empress's voice echoed in his mind. You lived while he died. You came home while he stayed in the ground. Jake felt the familiar weight of survivor's guilt, but he pushed through it. Tommy died doing his job, just like I'm doing mine now. The scene changed. Now he was 10 years old, watching his father leave home for the last time. But this version was worse. This time his father turned and said the words that Jake had always feared to hear. I'm leaving because of you, boy. You're not worth staying for. The words hit Jake like physical blows. But they were not real. His father had never said those things. My father left because he was afraid, Jake said out loud. Not because of me. The Empress's attack grew stronger. Jake found himself reliving every failure, every mistake, every moment of fear from his entire life. But with each memory, he found a way to accept it without being destroyed by it. I'm not perfect, he said to the darkness around him. I've made mistakes. I've been afraid. But I've also done good things. I've protected people. I've kept my word. The mental landscape changed again. Now Jake was standing in a mirror-lined room, surrounded by different versions of himself. There was Jake the coward running away from every fight. Jake the monster hurting innocent people. Jake the failure, disappointing everyone who had ever believed in him. Which one is real? The Empress demanded. Which Jake Martinez are you really? Jake looked at all the different versions of himself. Some were terrible. Some were wonderful. Most were something in between. All of them, he said finally. I'm all of them. The good and the bad. The brave and the scared. That's what being human means. The mirror room shattered like glass. Jake found himself back in the conference room, but it was different. The walls were covered with images from his life. His childhood in Texas, his time in the Marines, his friends and family. The Empress stood before him, but now she looked confused and frustrated. "You should be broken by now," she said. "Your mind should be in pieces." Jake opened his eyes and looked at her. He was still sitting in the chair, but he felt stronger than when he had started. "Maybe that's the difference between humans and Zephyrians," he said. "We don't break when we face our flaws. We learn from them." The Empress stepped back, her silver eyes wide with shock. "Impossible. No being can withstand the full force of what?" Jake stood up from the chair. "Of the truth about myself? I already knew all those things about me. The good and the bad. Showing them to me again doesn't change anything." Princess Lyra gasped from across the room. "Jake, you did it!" "You survived." But the Empress was not finished. Her face twisted with rage and frustration. "If your mind cannot be broken, then your body will be," she snarled. Jake felt telekinetic force slam into him like a giant fist. He flew backward and hit the wall hard enough to crack the metal. Pain shot through his ribs and left arm. Princess Lyra screamed. "Mother, no! The trial is over! He won!" "He won nothing," the Empress replied. "He is still just a primitive human who dares to challenge Zephyrian authority." Jake struggled to his feet, blood running from a cut on his forehead. His left arm hung at an odd angle, probably broken, but he was still standing. "Is that the best you've got, Your Majesty?" The question seemed to hit the Empress harder than any physical blow. She stared at Jake as if seeing him for the first time. Ambassador Torres stepped forward. "Empress Vexara, the trial is complete. Security Chief Martinez has proven his worth according to your own laws." The Empress looked around the room. Her own guards and advisors were staring at her with expressions of shock and disapproval. Even among the Zephyrians, there were rules about honor and fair play. Princess Lyra walked over to Jake and helped support his injured arm. "Mother," she said quietly. "Enough." For a long moment, the Empress said nothing. When she finally spoke, her voice was very different from before. "In 800 years of rule," she said slowly, "no being has ever spoken to me the way this human has spoken to me. No being has ever survived the trial of minds. No being has ever made me question my own actions." She paused, looking directly at Jake. "I begin to understand why my daughter finds humans interesting." Jake met her gaze steadily. "We're not trying to be interesting, Your Majesty. We're just trying to be ourselves." The Empress nodded slowly. "Perhaps that is enough." Jake Martinez woke up in the ship's medical bay with his left arm in a cast and bandages wrapped around his ribs. The human doctor, Lisa Park, was checking his chart when he opened his eyes. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I got hit by a truck," Jake replied. "How long was I out?" 6 hours. You have 3 broken ribs and a fractured arm, but nothing that won't heal." Dr. Park smiled. "You also have something no human has ever had before. The official respect of the Zephyrian Empire." Jake tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. "What happened after I passed out?" "The Empress declared you the winner of the trial of minds. Then she spent 2 hours in private conversation with Ambassador Torres. We think they're working out the details of a new agreement." The medical bay door opened and Princess Lyra entered. She moved quietly as if afraid to disturb him. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Better than I expected," Jake said. "How are you?" Princess Lyra smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, it was a genuinely happy expression. "Free," she said simply. "For the first time in my life, I feel free." Dr. Park excused herself to give them privacy. Princess Lyra sat down in the chair beside Jake's bed. "My mother wants to speak with you when you are feeling better," she said. "Is that good or bad?" "Good, I think. The trial of minds changed something in her. She keeps asking questions about human culture and values. I think you opened her eyes to possibilities she had never considered." Jake nodded carefully, trying not to move his ribs too much. "What about you? What happens to you now?" Princess Lyra's expression grew thoughtful. "My mother has offered me a choice. I can return to the Zephyrian homeworld and take up my traditional duties as princess. Or I can stay here and serve as an ambassador to humanity. What do you want to do?" "I want to learn," she said. "I want to understand how humans can be so strong without being cruel. I want to know how you find courage without anger. I want to see what it means to protect others instead of controlling them. Those are good things to want to learn." Princess Lyra was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Jake, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "During the trial of minds, when my mother was showing you all your worst memories and fears, how did you stay strong? How did you not break?" Jake thought about the question. "I guess because I stopped trying to be perfect a long time ago. When you accept that you're going to make mistakes and be afraid sometimes, those things can't be used to destroy you. But how do you live with the guilt? The shame? You don't live with it," Jake said. "You learn from it. Every mistake teaches you something. Every fear shows you what's important to you. You use them to become better, not to tear yourself down." Princess Lyra nodded slowly. "That is very different from how I was raised." "How were you raised?" "To be perfect. To never show weakness. To always be in control." She laughed, but it was a sad sound. "My mother's reaction to my defiance proves how well that worked." Jake studied her face. "You're not perfect, Your Highness. None of us are. But you're brave, and you're kind, and you stood up for what you believed was right even when it cost you everything. That's pretty impressive." Princess Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "No one has ever said anything like that to me before." "Then you've been talking to the wrong people." The next day, Jake was released from the medical bay. His arm was still in a cast, but he could move around. Ambassador Torres came to find him immediately. "Jake, the Empress wants to meet with you in 1 hour. Are you up for it?" "Do I have a choice?" Torres smiled. "Actually, yes. She specifically said this was a request, not a command. That's apparently unprecedented in Zephyrian culture." Jake made his way to the conference room, moving slowly because of his ribs. The Empress was waiting for him, but this time she was alone. "No guards, no advisors, no Princess Lyra. Security Chief Martinez," she said as he entered. "Please sit." Jake sat down across from her at the small table that had been brought in. The Empress looked different somehow. Less imposing, more thoughtful. "I owe you an apology," she said. Jake almost fell out of his chair. "Your Majesty? I attacked you after the trial was complete. That was dishonorable. In my anger and frustration, I forgot the principles that should guide a ruler." "Thank you, Your Majesty. That means a lot." The Empress leaned back in her chair. "Tell me, Jake Martinez, what do you think makes a good leader?" Jake considered the question carefully. "Someone who puts their people's needs before their own wants. Someone who listens to advice, even when they don't like what they hear. Someone who protects the weak instead of exploiting them. And if the people make the wrong choice, if they choose a path that leads to harm, then you try to guide them to a better path. But you don't force them. People have to make their own mistakes sometimes." The Empress was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was thoughtful. "For 800 years I have ruled through fear and force. My empire spans dozens of worlds, but my people obey me because they are afraid, not because they believe in me." "Fear only works for so long," Jake said. "Eventually people get tired of being afraid." "Yes," the Empress agreed. "I am beginning to understand that. Your species has taught me something important, Jake Martinez. Strength without compassion is not strength at all. It is weakness disguised as power." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "I am going to offer your people something I have never offered to any species before," she said. "True partnership. Equal standing in the Zephyrian Empire. Not as subjects, but as allies." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. That's incredible, Your Majesty. There is one condition," the Empress continued. "I want humans to serve as advisors to my government. I want to learn from your ways of thinking. And I want you specifically to serve as my daughter's guardian and teacher." "Me? Your Majesty, I'm just a security chief." The Empress turned back to face him. "You are the being who stood up to absolute power to protect someone who could not protect herself. You are the being who survived the trial of minds not through strength, but through acceptance of your own flaws. You are exactly what my daughter needs to learn from." Jake thought about Princess Lyra, young and curious and eager to learn about a different way of living. "I accept," he said. 3 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of a new ship, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. Princess Lyra stood beside him, no longer wearing the formal robes of Zephyrian royalty. Instead, she wore simple human clothes and a smile. "Nervous about visiting Earth?" Jake asked. "Excited," she replied. "I want to see where humans learn to be so stubborn." Jake laughed. "Oh, you'll fit right in." Behind them, Ambassador Torres was finalizing the details of the new alliance with a delegation of Zephyrian officials. The peace talks had ended with humanity gaining something no other species had ever achieved: true equality with the Zephyrian Empire. "Jake," Princess Lyra said quietly. "Thank you. For what?" "For showing me that strength and kindness can exist in the same person. For teaching me that protecting others is more important than controlling them. For helping me find my own courage." Jake smiled. "You already had the courage, Your Highness. You just needed someone to remind you." Princess Lyra looked out at Earth, her new home and her new beginning. "I think I'm going to like being human," she said. "You're not human," Jake reminded her. "You're Zephyrian." "No," she said, her blue-green eyes bright with determination. "I'm something new. I'm someone who chooses to protect instead of control. Someone who finds strength in kindness. Someone who stands up for others even when it's hard." Jake nodded. "Yeah, that sounds pretty human to me." As their ship approached Earth, Jake thought about how much had changed since that first day when an alien princess had tried to read his mind. Neither of them had expected to find friendship across the vast differences between their species. Neither had expected to learn so much from each other. But maybe that was what real strength was: the willingness to grow, to change, to become something better than what you started as. The stars wheeled overhead, infinite and welcoming, as two very different beings stood together and looked toward their shared future.